So let's actually go to the get of the evening. The top performing orc player who actually was able to go undefeated with his war hordes once again. So we've actually covered Tom Godfrey before, not by chance. You literally look at the stats. He's one of the most winning orc players. So a lot of the time we'll hear, people theorize how orcs can perform and will perform and da da da. And then they go, well, the only thing I have is me. And then the top best world class players that play on, world teams and such like that. It's hard to make that divide. And the best thing about Tom Godfrey is he's just a really good, excellent player that plays all the time and does great at events. And then he's willing, even in the notes where he concedes, there's other excellent, strong players or people that I understand that there's a skill disparity. Yet he's one of those, let's just say, average, like the rest of us who aren't doing it professionally, that aren't, traveling the world and going everywhere. You're just a dog in your own local meta, right? And that's what he is, where he's just like, I really figured out my meta. I got my reps in. I know who is the problems and I get reps against them too. And that's what he's more of a, relatable, consistent player to that degree. And yet we see that he adopts and adapts because he did not want to use gas. Because I talked to him, he's in our Discord, shout out to that git, and he's always easy to reach, but he's like, he likes to play like the trash, having a lot of units, a lot of activation. As you can see, outside of Gaz and his mob, everybody else has as many activations and units as he can get. He really loves to saturate the board, which is something that he'll share in the notes as well. So let's look at his list. We have 2 beast bosses, one with cunning babruo. I actually really like that enhancement. Always find it interesting when it's on the beast boss unit because it's like, well, they generally do always die, but when then we have a Big Mek with follow me lads and Gaz, obviously the meat and potatoes for sure. And so that's kind of like a staple right now, and he will give his thoughts on that in the in the notes as well, right? Because I like to ask these guys questions and such. So he does have thoughts on the mob as a whole going forward. And then we have 2 war bosses. So we have 4 Trukks, 2 units of Breaka Boyz, which are vital to his list. He absolutely loves bringing the Breaka Boyz on his list. He really favors that ability to crack armor, having damage 3, and he does pay for the boss. I always get a lot of, here we go, back and forth. What do you want to do with that? Do we put a boss on our breakers or not? In short, if you're playing a mass MSU list, a bunch of small units all over, and you're just trying to saturate the enemy with stuff, you don't got to pay for them. You can put them on your knobs because you probably just have a lot of stuff. If you're now trying to actually get efficient, consistent results out of these breakers into a more diverse pool of enemies, because you actually need them to do their job when it's that go turn, pay for the war boss. And that's where we're at in the meta right now. That's where I've been on that side for a very long time, and I'm glad Tom feels that way too. So he sets these up in SWAT teams with alongside those Flash Gitz. Then we have 2 Gretchen units for them home field and the backfield screening, which he finds vital. One of his new favorite units, the Commandos, and he actually did take war gear. When I pull up the thing, I'm gonna pull it up anyways, just like a second. I didn't say anything right there. The war gear he did take a rocket launcher, he took a burner, and he took the breacher ram, and of course the power claw. So people always ask, he took the better ranged weapons, which is what I advise too. So yeah, he took that, which I found was fun as well. And he really ended up liking this unit a lot. Once we go over his path to victory, we'll unpack the questions that I always ask him and his answers. But the one other thing I wanted to point out here that I found interesting was he only had 1 Stormboy unit. What I want to say there is not was that it found almost reassuring, quote unquote, right? Because in the after action report, you'll see that I intentionally didn't bring any Storm Boys on my list. My after action report list is really weird because what's the fun in seeing what everybody already knows performs already well? So I just brought stuff, which you guys will see. It's funny. But I didn't bring any Storm Boys on that list, and it did make things a little tougher here and there. But the fact that a lot of the more competitive players are now downsizing to 1 Storm Boy unit, yet when you hear from some of the renowned, we'll say orc players, they'll say they always need multiple Storm Boys. I always want 2. I always want 3, at least 3. So it's very interesting to just see the difference in diverse opinions there. I'm still in the camp of like, I still want 1. I'm still really used to just having 1, but I'm trying to get used to just not having 1 sometimes. So, I've actually not been playing them. So Storm Boys, but I do totally understand it. But you guys let me know what you think, because are you bringing Storm Boys? Are you not? Are you bringing more? Are you just not bringing them at all? There's a lot of thoughts back and forth there, especially with the Coptus coming down in points. So yeah, it's like I'm actually don't think there's a wrong answer is what I'm trying to say there. So shout out to Tom Godfrey. We're going to now take a look at his path to victory, and then he'll go over the notes for each of his games, and then he'll do a breakdown on how he felt about his MVPs and things he might change up, right? So let's get into it, you gets. What's up, chat? Chat's already getting into it, saying they're bringing one Storm Boy, they're bringing a biker. Yeah, exactly. You can change bikers, you can change Storm Boys around for sure. Not bringing Storm Boys around sounds about as fun as eating a bowl of rocks. Whoa, I'm an orc though. I eat them rocks no problem. I'm hard as nails, boy. So that was fantastic. But yeah, I know, right? I did not enjoy that though, to be honest. Yeah. So let's look into this Gitz actual path to victory. So thanks for that, chat. I like you guys. Chat's feeling lively today, though. You boys spicy out there. So let's look at his actual opponents, like I like to do. So we have his first matchup was, and he just said it real quick because his own notes was said it as it is. Not to be mean, Imperial Agent. He said it was kind of a good pairing for me. Obviously, devastating turn 2. The Corvus died in strat reserves because he screened out the whole board by turn 2. Nothing to stay there. He said it was a mismatch, and he really just felt like he took it over. So just saying. But that happens sometimes when you go to events. Luckily, we still have some fun other games for him where he goes into the second game. This one was Purge and Crucible of Battle versus host Gene Stealers. He said it was a very good local player that he's familiar with, that he often seems to face round 2, at some events. And he had to deal with, we'll call it Nid Alpha Strike. But so let's get into his list. We have a Benefactus, 2 of them, Biophages, 2 of them, a Nexus, a Reductus Saboteurs, 2 of those, 1 unit of the auto pistols, 1 unit of the flamers as the minimum size unit, a brick of hybrids. Actually, I think he had 3 of those, and then a last minimum size unit of hybrids, a Goliath truck, 3 individual Achilles Ridge Runners, an Atalan Jackal, the hybrid double bricks of the hybrid Metamorphosis, and then double units of Pure Strain Gene Stealers. What he said about this was that what ended up happening, that was the big swing here, was the Gene Stealers tried to alpha strike into his commandos that were screening Gaz. Then he ended up heroicing with Gaz, rolled a 9-inch on that heroic. So between that, piling and consolidating, he was able to take up a lot of free movement up the mid-table, gave a turn 1 wall, which gave him a real problem to deal with. And he said he did just enough damage and efficient, choice selection to kill all these units, because though some of you will think, well, this isn't a good unit. Well, the thing is that this is a lot of bodies, and they're playing the same. If it's an actual, like you said, familiar with this meta and how to play Gene Stealers, they're going to swarm the table with all these little bodies, be able to regen entire units. So the reason that player still went for the Alpha Strike isn't because he's necessarily hoping like, oh, this is such a devastating unit, I'm going to kill an importance. What it is he's trying to create space so that he can start bringing stuff in for reserve, because that's exactly how that army works. Yeah, how orcs work is I'm going to take on past, like I always advise people, past that mid-table board. See this screen? Pretend this is the board. You gotta cross that mid-table line with your orc as soon as possible. But we are not the only Xenos to play the game that way. Tyranids, GSC specifically, really like to play the game that way as well. They're trading bodies for points. They don't care, right? So he's really just pushing the Mandos back so he can bring stuff off, right? Chat said Zog off. War, exactly. So the fact that he heroic was also the ability to make up all that mid-table space, crash into the opponent, and then really mess with his reserve, his ability to bring units back, because once those units drop, they are able to chew through Tom Godfrey's unit armies. There's not, he does still have Gaz on that army, and then he's bringing Breaka Boyz, not a ton of volume on those units as well. 4 Trukks, right? It's not like he can overly redundantly kill all these mobs without taking a lot of casualties. So that's why some of you would say, well, it was Gene Stealers. Remember, it's also matchup and, and it's Purge. These units are easy to kill. Obviously, Gene Stealers are easy to kill as well if you pick the right units like these auto pistols. But if I gotta go into the 20-man units, right? So and if someone's saying, how do you deal with the reactive moves? If you deal with this reactive move from Gene Stealers, ultimately how he was saying it is he just took up the mid-table anyways, and he was so far in their face from the terminal wall where it's like, well, you're just gonna move reactive backwards anyway, and keep pushing them back through midfield. So he moves into his game 3, fantastic, where he goes into the Tyranid. And some people will say, well, Tyranids are in a great point in meta. One, Tyranids have way more actual event wins. Tyranids have more X01 ratings, and I believe, well, my video will show if I'm sure about that. I'll refute myself if I'm wrong. And Tyranids generally actually have a winning matchup into Orks, like across the general 40k community. So though some people may look at this and Tyranids are not the toughest army in 40k, well, they're actually one of the tougher armies for Orks to beat, and they're doing a lot better than us as a whole. So that's funny that people scoff their nose at Tyranids, yet when you look at the actual event results and the 4-1 placings, X1 placings, Tyranids are more respectable than Orks, actually. Not that I'm saying like, oh, poo-poo of them. No, I like Tyranids. I actually own the Tyranid army over there. What I'm saying is, like, you know, all within context, my boys, right? So in this matchup, he had hidden supply, search and destroy, baby, invasion fleet. So let's take a look at this list real quick. We have one single hive tyrant, one unit of gargoyle, two 20-man units of termagants, a biovore, double exocrines, two big 10-man units of gene stealers, which is way more actually intimidating to an orc army than just a 5-man unit, right? A lictor, and then triple Norn emissary. Let's go. So how he said this one was going, he said another great player that he's familiar with. He said the dude also shoved a alpha strike of gene stealers into Gaz and the Mandos. And of course, now he has these big 10-man units, so it actually didn't go the way it went last time. He lost 17 boys from that alpha strike from the gene stealers, right? So how many of you guys would be like, oh, I'm still locked in, this ain't nothing, when you lose 17 boys from the first activation? So he was after that, Gaz punched out one of those units in return. What ended up being the real mistake for his opponents in Tom's eyes was parking 20 Gaunts, a Hive Tyrant, and 2 Torns right in the middle, kind of all stacked right by each other. And so this allowed him to really get off a devastating turn 1 wall. So in his fight sequence, he killed Nord 1 with the beast. Mind you, if he's saying everything is parked there behind the middle one, though this is hidden supplies where there's more objectives and everything, and of course it's easier to get mid-table to degree. If you're all, as I understand it, standing in the mid, they're not standing on the objectives. That's the only way you're going to kill these Norns so easily. So he was able to kill him with the beastie and the Big Mek, because the Big Mek from Gaz's unit piled in. Then he, from clearing that, was able to let the Breaka Boyz pile into the second Norn. The third Norn charged into a unit of Breaka Boyz, and then the Breaka Boyz fought on death. So he said game over. Gargoyles died in reserved because, again, he was so far up the field on his opponent from these early activations. Now, that opponent was trying to do the same thing to him. So this wasn't like a given. Like we said earlier, he pulled off a heroic. He understood the table, and this was search and destroy. So obviously, right? So let's look at his, that was his, what, third game, right? Yeah. Then we go into his fourth game, which was into Astra Militarum. So we have, what was this? Combined arms. Let's go. We have Cadians. Actually, if you guys didn't know, I had an Astra Militarum army. It was actually all Tempest Scions when you could soup. Shout out to that, guys. Cheers to the Gitz that remember those days. So we have Cadian Castellan squad and one Cadian command squad, and the other one's a Catachans. One unit of Ogwyn bodyguards, double Rogodorn commanders, one big brick of 20 Cadian shock, a 10-man unit of Cadian shock, 10-man unit of Catachan jungle fighters, two big 6-man units of double green with brute shields, triple unit Ghazghkull, and one Torox with double Chimera. So let's see. I just got lost my note. Yeah, so what happened here was he said, what happened was the opponent was a little bit too reserved with his screening, and he had too much stuff on his Dorn that was too tightly packed in front, yet left this gap on the side for the breakers to charge through anyway. So it could also happen, if people aren't familiar, a good way when he says anyways means that, say that, which I mentioned in the after action report as well, but if someone's trying to screen you, a mistake to often make is, well, your base can't fit between this gap, which is a mistake I made, right? That's why it's funny I bring it up. But there's, your might not fit, it doesn't look like your base can fit through that gap anyways, therefore it's screened. Well, if you just declare multi charges into the screening unit and the unit you're trying to get to, of course it extends your charge, of course your unit's more spread out, but you still gonna get stuck in. So that's kind of what happened here, is that he was still able to find a gap and push through there. So there's a chance that he might have had to leave one of his breakers or two of his breakers on some of the screening unit, but still able to get base to base with the Dorn and smash it. So he said that was actually a big mistake. Not saying that's exactly what happened, because he didn't describe it exactly that way, but he did leave a gap, is what he's saying. So because he said he charged through the gap anyway, unless he just walked through, which would be unusual, but happens. He said on a turn 2 wall, he picked up 12 Bullgrin, a Chimera, a Dorn, and two squads of Scions and 2 Cadian blobs. So on the turn 2, he smashed through the entire army, which is a huge factor with his guard matchup, actually being able to hit them, and if they don't layer you, right? If you're watching someone like John Lennon, he'll layer you, but he'll also bring stuff that's able to act as the screen that can push you out, like something like Catachans would help. Then we go into a great job there. Love to see that, boy. Turn 2 walls are great. And it was Lichpin, Crucible battle. Yeah, okay, make sure I mention that. Then we go into his last matchup. You're still following, right? Where he goes into the Tau. So Tau Monka. So you have a commander in Enforcer battle suit, 2 of them, 1 Devilfish, double knife, fire knife battle suits, double hammerhead gunships, ion seeker missile. Okay, 1 carnivore unit, triple pathfinders, 1 piranha, Triptide with 3 riptides, and then double of the new, based on all the points, South battle suit, which one looks like. So as for his matchup, this was Taken Hold on Search and Destroy versus Monka. He said the main matchup I wanted commandos for, and they earned their point. He won the defender roll off, and he said, Tom won the defender roll off and turn 1. He screened 16 away from gas, so his opponent screened 16 away from gas with -2 to charge from Pathfinders. But his mistake was also putting 2 ripsides on the side objectives and a squad of suits and ion hammerheads in threat range of other. That's the thing that you will find orc players, right? Which of course you have to be, safe with your things as well, and the enemy will pre-screen you, but they also get very packed up into themselves because, and this was Search and Destroy, right? So you can imagine they're all kind of on top of each other. They got armor, they got suits, they're gonna be close to each other regardless. So he was so stuck on screening gas, which is fine, that the beast bosses casually deleted a riptide each one with 20 dev wounds. So remember, guys, if you don't know, watch the video how to fish for those dev wounds. But yeah, you can do that with your beast boss. So he says he got 20 devs. The Mandos and Breakas did suits on took out the suits and the ion hammerheads between them both. Eventually the Gaz unit just killed the Pathfinders, killed some stealth suits, right? So he's kind of working through the chaff while everybody's actually hitting the core of the army and the Devilfish. But more importantly, landed a big problem in the deployment zone. -1 the moon made a big difference. So because Search, he was able to crash through there as well. So he said the -1 the moon was a big deal, and functionally the game was over by turn 2, of course, as you can understand. So with that being said, great job. He does have some notes and some stuff he wanted to say as well. Let's see. He said, this is my proudest win, despite not being the biggest, because the field was absolutely stacked with great players. Although I will say pairings were fairly kind to me. I avoided players I considered the very best at the event. So as I said, Tom's very humble. He always says that all the time, even though he's always stomping everywhere and always going 4-1 and has done well at events consistently. He will consistently say he's very aware that the path to victory matters, which the best players will always say and concede. And they'll say they know who they don't want to or don't necessarily favor themselves matched up into. Right? I remember at an event, I was like talking to a Git that I'm familiar with, and I wasn't familiar with playing with him yet, but I knew of him and he was in the area. I was feeling all confident. All right, dude, I'm gonna be able to handle this. And then I see him and I'm like, okay, well, maybe not that one yet. You know what I'm saying? Going into the next, and then guess who I got the next day on day 2? I got that Git, so we got stuck in, and that was a great job. Now I love him. I love playing that guy. So we all have that. We have to also be aware, like, right? We all do. If we understand the meta, we know what's gonna happen sometimes in hard games, especially hard missions and such, right? That's also like, so great job. Sorry to keep blabbing. So now to talk about the gas brick. He says, of course, it killed a lot, it demanded the opponent's attention, and it pinned them in their deployment zone. All their resources were often looking at it, and often a detriment to their scoring. More often than not, the boys would die, though inevitably the -1 to wound would make it a big deal, and gas would continue to be an absolute menace. And it's sometimes just a gas delivery device. And what he means by that is what we went over in his Tyranid matchup, where he lost 17 dudes to an Alpha Strike from Gene Stealers, and it didn't matter at all. He just marched up the field, and that's absolutely true. If I got a Knob, a Big Mek, or whatever character is attached, and gas, I'm good, because you can just crump with just that, to be honest. So a lot of time, yeah, it is a delivery mechanism. Also, the Boys Connect is a way to just take up space, touch tag a bunch of the units while you focus with gas. It's like I need to find something, an equivalent, a functional equivalent. That's a good way to say it. So having said all this, he's still not totally convinced the unit. Totally understand. Mainly because it's 500 points, but I will continue using it for a few events and see how far he can take it. Right. And you guys let me know what you guys think, because this is what, shout out to Lucas Troller. Someone was saying Lucas Troller as well, right? Lucas Troller as well was saying very similar things as to totally love it. It's awesome, but dang, it's a lot of points, man. Michael Mann, all of the best players we talk about, we know, people we're just gets familiar with, my local Discord, everyone we talk to, right? All Ork players kind of like, I really do like this, but dang, I mean, the boys still stayed at 170. I remember boys used to be 160. GW, the 20-man unit. Though I will say, I actually am in favor of the, bigger units cost more, the cost difference of unit size is not just duplicating the cost, doubling the cost. Like I think Squigs, if they're so scared about it, dude, make my big bricks come down. All right, let's, something be interesting like that. So like he was saying, I've mentioned in the beginning, he likes to play a lot of chaff, a lot of trash, right? So it's different. I'm like that too, where it's like I like to play a lot of chaff, a lot of trash, and when I play gas, and I feel that kind of way, like, man, I wish I had more stuff. Still, ultimate, like, yeah, it does its thing, but dang, he said also another thing he said is he's really enjoying the Mandos. The punchy half is really surprising, and they outperformed what he expected. He was able to kill Lictor with them, and they even killed a couple Crisis. Totally, especially when you're playing War Horde, right? No lie, guys. People don't believe me. That's why I never mention it. Kill one of those stupid little Grey Knight. I remember brain fart of their suits. Baby carriers, right? I killed a baby carrier with commandos. Yeah, they got their bombs quick off and stuff. But I killed a baby carrier with just War Horde Mandos. It just happened. Of course, like the Armor of Contempt obviously can only be activated one place and only one activation, blah blah blah. So they didn't have Armor of Contempt when I smashed them, but that's still sick when it happened. I was like, what? This never happened. And it might have lost a few wounds from something, but it was in the enemy's deployment zone, so I know it wasn't like shot at by anything really. So actually maybe one thing plus whatever. Ultimately, we're agreeing on the same. He's saying I have another GT next weekend. He said he's considering, or he will, for at least for this event, because he's testing stuff, right? He has dropped the Mandos for Snickra and another 10 grot because he missed having 20 in his backfield. It's funny because if you guys don't know, Tom was one of the first people that would take 20 grots in his backfield and just screen them across his whole field so people can't get there. And they draw Call the Horde. It's not a dead card in that case. And then late game, he can bring it up and do stuff with it and OC bomb stuff. So he really likes that. He said the 20 boys is usually only killable for one turn and then dies. So the theory is that 20 grots still efficiently denies Call the Horde for 4 out of the 5 turns. He's saying like, right, if they don't got it that turn, they're whatever, they don't have it anyways. So yeah, he said I'm better at brevity now. So shout out to Tom, shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount, because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!